Alright, looks like we're good to go. Checking 1, 2. Yep, all set. Alright, good evening, folks. Welcome along for another installment of the 2023 ARC Formula One season. Round 20 to 25, really getting down to the nitty-gritty of it. This weekend we find ourselves in Texas, I believe, yes. After a weekend off. Getting going with some qualifying at the moment. So here we are at the Circuit of the Americas, first raced in Formula One in 2012, of course. It's a rather new addition to the Formula One calendar, but already a driver favorite to many. Great track to race, great track to drive. Hoping here for a great race to watch also. First out tonight, looks like it'll be Travis in the Ferrari. Before we get too deep into it, let's take a run through the Drivers' Championship, which is really heating up as we get down to the end of the season. Of course, with the absence last time out, or I'm sorry, 2 races ago for Mikey de Jong, he, having led the championship by quite a margin over teammate Abdul Al-Hazmi, the lead has shrunk to only 13 points, I believe, yes. Mikey de Jong still atop the board with 266 points, but Al-Hazmi, after laying down 3 wins in a row in lieu of Mikey's absence, crept right up on him, and of course we had that memorable last lap last time out at Suzuka, where Mikey de Jong and Al-Hazmi were just neck and neck most of the race, keeping it very clean and tidy. However, Mikey de Jong did make a move in the final corner of the final lap to get his teammate for the win, in a strong return to form. Down the rest of the order, there is a few tight battles. We have Boryoshi, currently P3 in the Drivers' Championship with 194 points. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, P4 with 173, so it's within spitting distance, I'd say. There could be a battle there. Close behind in P5 of the Drivers' Championship is Liam Carrig, sitting on 146 points. And then Matt Stotts is 36 points behind in Drivers' Position 6 with 110. However, AJ Knickel storming his way up the leaderboard, it looks like. Currently P7 in the Drivers' Championship, only 9 points behind Matt Stotts with 101. And then it kind of trickles down from there. Gaps start to grow and whatnot between 2 drivers in the championship, but very tight atop the board, must be said. And of course, at this point, that Williams team has well and away locked up the Constructors' Championship, but still all to play for the Drivers' Championship, of course, as mentioned, with Mikey de Jong's original absence a few weeks ago, and Al-Hazmi just running away with it for those that were left. 3 wins in a row. It was sort of magical, I'd say. I mean, sort of predicted, as we've seen with their form all season thus far. 2 of the top drivers, of course, in this series. But man, it's shaping up to be a good season, of course, with those 2. So, first on their hot lap tonight will be Travis, of course. We'll see what he's able to do as he finds his way through Sector 2 at the moment, coming down the back straight. Plenty of drivers making it to the grid tonight. We have, it looks like 16, so of course plenty to be fighting for points, as where with the reduced grid, it's, it has potential to not be as interesting of an event, given that there's more points available, there's less to fight for, I'd say. But every one of these top 10 positions will be super valuable here this weekend, of course. Absolutely nothing to be left on the table as we come down through the end of the season, and it is Travis laying down the 134, but quickly getting beaten out by Andrew Davis in the Alpine for provisional pole position at the moment with the 133.9. Should expect pole time to be in the mid to low 132s, I believe. Jamie Knock coming across with the 133.91 to Andrew Davis's 9.9. AJ Knickel next across with the 134.4. That's good for P4 at the moment. More times will start to come across now, it looks like. Oh. And that's a duck in for Jackson Altman, unfortunately. Must have invalidated. Mikey DeYoung, without skipping a beat, right to the top of the timing boards on his first lap out. 133.3, over half a second clear of the rest of the field, and I'm sure it will only get better from there. As mentioned, of course, a real smooth return to form for him last time out. Bit of a cheeky move on the final lap, but did manage to pull it out there in Suzuka. And as I mentioned, that teammate Abdul Al-Hazmi straight to the top of the boards in Mikey DeYoung's place by nearly half a second as well. Actually, almost exactly half a second with the 132.8. That's good enough for provisional pole for the time being. Oh, looks like we do have a car. Just kind of stopped chilling on the side of the track. That is Josh Bowditch in the AlphaTauri, unfortunately. Not sure what's going on there. Anyway, off and running now is Matty Daly. He'll be looking for, I'd say probably top 8 here on this lap. Plenty of time left in the session, though, for drivers to lay down some hot laps. And of course, plenty that have still yet to do so, as Matt Daly goes purple through the first sector. Coming up quickly now on his teammate Travis, who will slide right over and make space, and give him a tow if possible, actually, it looks like. Down the back straight, that is a great tow that Matt Daly's getting from his teammate. Oh, and he just goes right off to make as much space as possible. You gotta respect the move. Dangerous? How could it be? Oh, and as we follow along with Matty Daly, it is Matthew Stotts who manages to eke out over Abdul Al-Hazmi for provisional pole, 132.7, nearly a tenth over. Through the final few corners now comes Matty Daly, the final one now, and we'll see what he's able to lay down here. Good for P5 with the 133.5. Not bad at all. Matthew Stotts, though, what a lap in that Aston Martin. Really pulled one out there. Not quite sure who will be the next across. Fortunately, it looks like Tyler Crabtree has invalidated his lap a bit early, so he'll be bailing out of this one and looking to go again. Invalidated as well for AJ Knickel, unfortunately. Quick trip into the pits and back out he'll go. A few more times starting to come across now. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer making his way into P4 in this quali session right now with the 133.3. Times are rather tight, I must say. Separation is really not that much. Francis next across the line with the 134.2. That's good for P10 for the moment. Jackson Altman, it looks like, will be starting his first hot lap of the session now. Really kind of snuck up on the field, I must say, given his performance the last few times we've seen him. Really just came out of nowhere of sorts. Of course, he was racing under an alias for a bit of the season. You might remember Zane Bradley, I believe it was. Now racing under his government name, of course, because why wouldn't ya? Purple through Sector 1 already, and he was probably just waiting for a bit of rubber to come to the track and a bit of life to really invigorate his lap time. As he's seeing now, I'm sure we will start seeing lap times start to tumble as we hit about the halfway point in the session. A little over, actually. So down the back straight he comes now. And this may be good for a purple Sector 2 as well. We'll have to see. It will not be a purple Sector 2, however, a great time already. And as mentioned, of course, his first lap out of this qualifying session. Only a few drivers yet to put a time up on the board, but all of them seem to be on a hot lap at the moment. Through the penultimate corner comes Jackson Altman, and real smooth with it. Over the line from P16 to P3 he goes with the 133.35. Wow. And that makes him the third driver sitting on a lap time of 133.3 at the moment. Gabe Cazzola, one of the few without a lap time up on the board yet, unfortunately having invalidated this lap. He'll have to duck in and come back out quick to get one, maybe two, if he can. Two more hot laps. Oh, and a big twitch there from Ayrton Frederick in the Alfa Romeo. Manages to recover it very nicely. Of course, that probably compromised a whole lot of lap time on corner exit, but still. Gotta commend the effort. Oh, and another big twitch. Oh my goodness. Comes over the line with the 135.9, and I feel like he spent almost as much time of that lap sideways as he did racing forward. So he'll be looking to improve. Oh, or he may not be looking to improve, unfortunately, as he crashes his way out into the first corner on his cooldown lap. He will not improve from that 135.9, currently in P15. But it's Matt Stott still sitting on that provisional pole time of the 132.7. Al-Hazmi, Mikey de Jong, and Jackson Altman all chomping at the bit, though. I feel like all four of those drivers have a decent chance at shooting for pole here. Time really winding down in the session, though. And it's Al-Hazmi, as I say so. Purple all the way around. Good for the 132.716. 8/100ths of a second faster than Matthew Stott. So, what will Mikey de Jong do? Oh, unfortunately, it looks like just about nothing, as he is also one of the unfortunate drivers to invalidate a lap. Maybe an important one here, as the time will be pretty tight for him to be able to duck in and then make his way back out for one more. Hazmi seems to be on a second hot lap. I'm not sure what's going on here. He's down on his personal best, however, still seems to be pushing for one here. Through the penultimate corner. Slight twitch. Not much, though. Oh, and quickly into the pits. He was just burning his way through that cooldown lap to make it back in. And out once again, and around for an out lap before he's finally able to run another hot lap. Respect the strategy, of course. And Gabe Cazola, the last driver remaining to be able to put a time on the board. He'll be looking to do so here, and it'll unfortunately be the only one that he'll be able to, given the time left in the session at the moment. Hoping, just praying, I bet he is, that he does not invalidate, and as soon as I say so, he invalidates his lap, so that will be no time on the board for Gabe Cazola here in this qualifying session. Rather unfortunate. I did not mean to give any commentator's curse there, but that was really, I think he had 2 or 3 other incidents where he was on a pretty decent lap and unfortunately had invalidated it, but that's the last one, his last chance. That is the 3rd strike, and he is out, unfortunately, retiring on the track rather dangerously. So, Jamie Knock actually quietly making his way up into P3. Did not notice that. Currently sitting on the 33-0. And I believe he's off once more on this lap, trying to chase down that pole position time. Matthew Stotts, of course, looking to do the same, and the question now becomes, who will make it around in time to be able to start another lap? I feel like you have to already be well out of the pits by this point, yeah. Unclear which drivers will be able to make it in over the line before the time runs out, but we will keep a close eye on that, of course. Jamie Knock, unclear, maybe having some mechanical trouble, seems to be stuck in first gear, not too sure what's going on there, having invalidated his lap. Matthew Stotts, unfortunately, with the early retirement, must have had an incident of his own. He's sitting on that 132.7 and will hope for the best there, but he will not take a crack at pole position today. And I believe that is the last chance for Jamie Knock as well, as he's just kind of rumbling very slowly through the lap. Not too sure what's going on here, but he is clearly invalidated. And it looks like both Williams will be free and clear to run one more. Al-Hazmi starting his final lap now. Mikey DeYoung making his way through the final corner as well for his last lap of the session. And Jamie Knock just thundering his way around, saving up as much battery as he can for one last push. So, I stand corrected. He was rumbling through the lap in first gear to get himself back some ERS charge and send it once more without needing to come back in. So, it will be the 2 Williams, the 2 Mercedes, and Jamie Knock, the only ones on a legal lap here. Call it a buzzer beater, if you will. Oh, and it looks like Al-Hazmi has already invalidated his lap. Oh, man. Right at the beginning of Sector 2, it looks like. Oh, and that's just unfortunate. However, pole position for the moment. He'll have to hang on tight there. Jamie Knock with an early retirement. He may have had his own troubles on that final lap. So it is just down to the 2 Mercedes and the 2 Williams. So who will it be? Will it be Jackson Altman? Will it be Abdul Al-Hazmi hanging on without being able to put up a lap time here? Will it be his teammate Mikey DeYoung, who has been on point, it feels like, for the majority of this season? He will be the first across the line here. And is it good enough for pole? It is! Mikey DeYoung really pulling one out there. Purple all the way around. That is pole position for Mikey DeYoung for the moment, unless Jackson Altman or Julius Duku have anything to say about it right here. As Jackson comes across the line, and it does not look like it will be good enough for pole position. Only P4 for Jackson Altman there, and it is Mikey DeYoung. at the 11th hour, if you will. Right at the end there, shades of Suzuka final lap. Just pulls one out right out from under his teammate, I must say. Mikey DeYoung on pole position here in the USGP with Abdullah Hazmi lining up alongside him. Matthew Stotts will hang on for the P3 start with Jackson Altman taking up the second spot on row 2 with him. Jamie Knock and Jonathan Jurgensmeyer will take row 3 as Matty Daly and Andrew Davis qualifying P7, P8 will get row 4. AJ Knickel and Julius Duku qualifying P9 and P10, and Travis getting P11 there. Tyler Crabtree with P12, and looks like Francis and Luke Allen will start on the 7th row. And the grid is set here in Texas. We are good to go for round 20 out of 25 here in the ARC Formula 1 season. And it's anybody's ball game, I feel. These top 5, it'll be a real shootout. Of course, we will see gaps start to form and dissipate as the race goes on, different strategies coming into play. However, I feel like it's anybody's ball game just at this current moment. Mikey DeYoung and Abdullah Hazmi, of course, will be right up there, as we always expect them to, but I have good feelings about Matthew Stotts and Jackson Altman's chances today. We will, of course, be back under formation lap to start the race. Word coming down that apparently the glitch that was causing all kinds of trouble with formations laps has been allegedly fixed. Haven't seen for myself, to be honest, so I guess I will have to see for myself right here. Whether it's true or not, we may end up killing the lobby, we may not. We'll hope for the best. But as often with this game, we expect the worst, so bear with us if anything does happen to go incorrectly. Oh, it looks like we are actually without a formation lap. I'm sorry, I must have been misinformed. But it's Mikey DeYoung getting a good getaway with Abdullah Hazmi falling already. Taking a very inside line there as we see trouble back down the grid as well. Travis looks like getting caught up in something. Matthew Stotts had a look there on Al-Hazmi through the first corner or two, but backing off now. And the Williams boys already starting to pull. Plenty of action up and down the grid as it looks like Gabe Cazzola making the move on Ayrton Frederick for P13 there. Oh, and that Mercedes going straight up the inside. Oh, and contact between Jamie Knock and Andrew Davis. Oh. Unfortunate for Jamie Knock. Does manage to recover at least well enough to maintain some sense of position there. Currently down to P9 from, I believe, P6. Francis making the move there on AJ Knickel, I believe. And then teammate Tyler Crabtree making a move right back on him. So here we have it. Already half a second of a gap between Abdullah Hazmi and Jackson Altman, currently P3. These Williams boys may be running away with it. Let's take a look at the tire details. See who's running what strategy, and Mikey DeYoung is going long. He is starting on the hard compound tires, and he's really counting on teammate Abdullah Hazmi to be a good boy here and play some defense as necessary until he can get some life into those hard compound tires. Mediums from P2 to P6, though, and then a few more hard compound tire runners looking to go long and maybe make the overcut work if possible. A few drivers opting to start on the softs, and that'll play nicely into their favor if they are able to move a bit up the grid. It looks like most of them outside of the points, so they will have some work ahead of them. Jackson Altman not letting the Williams pull too far ahead, it looks like. Gap as large as about 0.8 of a second at one point, now down to about 0.3, so real fluctuation there as he may be looking to make a move here. He had a peak, but not quite enough room to make it work. He tucks back in behind Al-Hazmi. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer must be said, holding on well as well. I mean, if you were to look up in the dictionary smooth and steady, if the dictionary was for phrases and not just words, I suppose, because smooth and steady would not be in the dictionary. However, if it was, there would be a picture of Jonathan Jurgensmeyer in the definition, I swear to you. Currently sitting P5, and he's just playing it cool at the moment, staying calm and looking to see what he can make of his luck here, having started on those medium compound tires. A few behind him on the softs, a few ahead of him on the hards, so really anybody's game here, and he's just going to let it play out, it looks like. Oh, and a big move there from Julius Dooku, outside to inside, in a span of about 100 meters. Francis will have to bide his time and look for a different opportunity to make the move here for P9. Oh, right up into the back of that Mercedes he goes, really letting him know that he's there. And cleanly making the move there, up into P9 he goes. And here we are. This battle with these people towards the back of the grid for these final point scoring positions will shape up to be quite the battle, let me tell you. Looks like we have a ghosted car on the grid of Josh Bowditch. May have had some troubles early on, so we will disregard this car. And as if according to plan, of course, these Williams boys still 1-2 very comfortably, very confidently. Jackson Altman still right there within a second of them. And Matthew Stott's even closer to Jackson Altman there, currently sitting P4 than Jackson Altman is to Abdullah Hazmi. If only for a split second there, now it is the reverse that is true. Oh, and Jonathan Jurgensmeyer. I really hope I'm not just handing out commentators' curses left and right here, because he was within about a second, 1.2 of Matthew Stott's, now about 3 seconds behind those front runners, with Andrew Davis in keeping him company very closely. Jamie Knock will be looking to have a taste of this little feast going on ahead of him as well if he can, making his way back up the grid after some early troubles off the start. Jurg just keeping it smooth and steady there, knowing that Alpine's looking to make the move quickly. Both of them, of course, on those medium compound tires, so neither one having really much of an advantage over the other. Yellow's out momentarily. Looks to be somebody rejoining. Should be good to go now. I believe it was Ayrton Frederick back in P15 having a bit of a moment. Penalties already coming across here. That is a track limits violation for Jamie Knock, only on lap 5 of this race. Gabe Cazzola also sitting upon a penalty at the moment, and another that he just incurred. Wow, okay. It's got to be commentator's curse. I really don't know what's going on here. Let's take a look, though, at the penalties. Oh, that is now 12 seconds total that Gabe Cazzola is sitting on back there in P12. Fitting. Jamie Knock will be looking to keep it tidy from here, of course, because any infraction when you're that high up the grid is just kind of a death sentence for your finishing position. I mean, it's very tight battles that go on in this league. There's not very much separation once you get into the point scoring positions. And as I sit here talking about penalties, a third penalty incurred, that one being for Ayrton Frederick. Let's see. Sorry, I didn't catch it come across the top banner, but it is a track limits violation for him, 3 seconds. And Jackson Altman, I mean, as ever, just keeping it steady there, not letting these Williams pull ahead by any margin. Matthew Stott's possibly running the same maneuver here. I mean, given the situation, he probably could have gotten closer to Jackson Altman by now, but just kind of keeping it tucked in, keeping it nice and tidy, right in the toe. And it looks like Jonathan Jurgensmeyer has lost out on that P5 position to Andrew Davis, but looking to make a comeback on him. The return move, not quite enough through here. Love this helicopter shot at Cody. You just get a good view of so much of the track here, especially if you're at one end or the other, looking all the way down, because it is a very, what is it, latitudinal track, I guess? I don't know. It's very long, it's not very wide in terms of land space. But Jonathan Jurgensmeyer right up into the back of that Alpine now, and does make the move up the inside here. Comfortably back up into P5, if only for the moment. Maybe seeing some action here from Jamie Knock, who's now in on it as well. As well as Andrew Davis, of course, looking to maintain that position. So, holding station for the moment, only a few battles that are, or only a few drivers that are within half a second of one another. Oh, and a very wide there was Andrew Davis. Had a look at Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, but not quite enough. Down the front stretch into the first corner, still not quite enough. Having a peek up the inside here. Running the gears a little as well. Jamie Knock just, waiting for a mistake to happen, waiting for one of these two to let something slip. And this should be an interesting battle here between these three for P5 position at the moment, but maybe more come the end of the race. Currently finding ourselves about a quarter of the way through this Grand Prix. Gap growing significantly, it must be said, though, between Matthew Stotts and that P5 position now of Andrew Davis as he makes the move over Jonathan Jurgensmeyer. Jamie Knock right up into the rear of that Haas. Oh, and a big twitch there from the both of them. Jamie Knock having his own, but in front of him, Jonathan Jurgensmeyer having an even bigger one. Oh, and a bold move there from Jamie Knock. Looks to have made a little bit of contact, tire to side pod. Of course, not enough, it seems, to have caused any form of damage, but still, an interesting move there. And I must say, if I'm Jamie Knock here, especially on those hard compound tires, you got a little bit to give. I would be pushing. I'm not going to tell him how to race his own race, of course, but sitting on that penalty, of course, any positions he's able to gain here would be good in the long run. And any time he can make up in that big 7-second gap from P5 to P4 would just serve to benefit him. More penalties coming across now as Tyler Crabtree, currently racing in that final point scoring position, will incur a track limits violation, unfortunately. And these three having a bit of separation now. Gaps between the three of them growing to over half a second each. Not too sure why, but they all seem to have agreed to back off a bit all at the same time. Pretty interesting. Lap 8 we find ourselves on at the moment, and it must be mentioned, for all racing laps thus far in this United States Grand Prix, the gap between any two drivers on the podium at the moment, that is the gap from Mikey de Jong to Abdullah Hazmi and Abdullah Hazmi to Jackson Altman, Gap's never been more than 1 second, all keeping it within 1 second of each other. Matthew Stotts was with them for most of that as well, now dropping about a second and a half behind. Oh, and Andrew Davis, the next one to pick up a track limits penalty, unfortunately. Oh, and that only leaves Jonathan Juergensmeyer out of that pack of 3 that has been battling, that is yet to pick up a penalty, and maybe this is all part of the Jurg master plan, you never know. It seemed that Jamie Knock was sort of trying to run that strategy to some extent, just letting Andrew Davis and Jonathan Juergensmeyer fight it out for P5 and hanging back, hoping for them to make a mistake, but now it is Jonathan Juergensmeyer playing that role and seemingly having a bit more luck with it now that both of the drivers ahead of him have both picked up track limits penalties. And it looks like Matthew Stotts continues to drop from those top 3, unfortunately. About half a lap ago, the gap was 1.6. Now it is nearly 2.5 seconds. Not too sure what's going on there with him. He's low on ERS charge, but not low enough to be of super concern. Big twitch there, and he may be seeing he may be in the end stages of the life of these medium compound tires, unfortunately. Pushing real hard to keep up with those top 3 up to this point, but, you know, now just sort of dropping further and further back from them. So, interestingly enough, the closest interval between any 2 drivers on the track right now is that between the teammates of the Williams, Mikey de Jong and Abdullah Hazmi, currently P1 and P2. Oh, and as I say so, it is Matthew Stotts ducking into the pits. Oh, an early pit here, maybe looking to make the undercut if possible, or just gain as much time back in that gap between the top 3 as he can. Oh, and a interesting rejoin there, not sure exactly who may be at fault for that one, but Julius Duku probably not very happy about that. Seems to have taken avoiding maneuvers to just get out of the way of that slow Aston Martin as it was exiting the pit lane. And we may see something come to the end of the race because of that. And of course, should also be mentioned now, as I've been spending so much time talking about penalties and whatnot, it is all subject to appeal, so the final positions of each driver are subject to change come post-race investigations and whatnot. There's a lot of stewarding that has to go on that, frankly, we just don't have enough eyes on the race to be able to do while it's happening, so everything is subject to change, including track limits violations, where sometimes the game's just being cranky at you. Oh, and is this Francis looking to make a move on AJ now for that P7 position? Getting closer and closer through these last few corners. About half a second behind at the moment. Of course, with that DRS, though, that'll pull him right up to the back of that Aston Martin. Interesting run through the gears there for everybody on the exit of turn 1. Don't know if that's just my game being strange, but I'm hearing some weird gear shifting there. Multiple drivers now at this point too, which is the strange part. However, Francis still looking to make that move on AJ now. Still about half second between them. This is the closest battle on track at the moment. Oh, and it's Jamie Knock and Andrew Davis having a go at one another, it looks like there. Andrew getting right up next to that Alfa Romeo, and a big twitch there from him. Oh, those medium compound tires may be seeing the end of their days as well, unfortunately. On lap 11 of 28 currently. And I think that twitch had him lose out quite a bit to Jamie Knock there. Should be mentioned, though, that gap was staying around 7 or 8 seconds between P4 and P3. Now, 11 seconds has opened up between them just in the last few laps. So those top three really pushing with everything they've got now, leaving nothing on the table. Oh, it looks like Matthew Stott's making the move up the inside there on those fresh hard compound tires. P9 over Tyler Crabtree, that will be for him. Looks like Francis did end up making that move on AJ. AJ's still close enough to have a peek at him if he wants. Oh, and a big twitch there, it looks like, from Francis. Rear end's really stepping out at the end of tire life here in COTA. Oh, and Matthew Stott's looking to have a peek at this if he can help it. Both Aston Martins here with plenty of DRS. Francis making his defensive move, it looks like. Oh, and Matthew Stott's breezing right up the inside. Will he have enough? Leaves a bit of space there on the outside. Looks to have been legal. They are still wheel to wheel. A bit of a touch there, it looks like. And Matthew Stott's getting the better of Francis here for P7. AJ Knickel licking his chops as well, maybe looking to capitalize on the lost position. Not quite close enough to be able to do so, though. However, he's definitely creeping up on that McLaren of Francis. So, a few drivers into the pits now. We have Jackson Altman pitting from P3, as well as Andrew Davis, I believe, pit from P5, I want to say. Strategy starting to come into play here, of course, with those front two having started on their... only Mikey de Jong having started on the hard compound tire. That's right, teammate Abdullah Hazmi really sticking it out on these mediums, already 12 laps on his medium compound tires, and Jamie Knock doing well to hang right with them also. So, none of the top four drivers have pit yet. Matthew Stotts, though, having made his move, showed his hand with the attempt at the undercut, and I must say it's really worked out significantly for him now. He is the highest driver up the order, having already pit, and not too terribly far behind the top four. So what'll it be for Al Hazmi? Of course, running those medium compound tires, he may be thinking of a pit soon enough as well. But of course, all to play for here. 13 points of separation between these two in the Drivers' Championship, and Abdullah Hazmi will duck it into the pits. Let's see what he opts for. Already having run half of the race, it has to be the hard compound tires, of course, and he's just going to push whatever he can out of them from here, I'd imagine. Mikey de Jong in a great position, though, running those hard compound tires, and he'll have plenty of life in the medium compound tires that he'll be looking to switch onto next whenever that time may come. But wow, what a stint there from Al Hazmi, of course, sticking it out on those medium compound tires for nearly half the race distance. And it is Mikey de Jong free and clear at the moment. Of course, running those old hard compound tires now, but Jamie Knock 15 seconds behind he finds himself at the moment. Also having not pit yet, and also having started on the hard compound tires, of course. Lots to play for here, folks. I mean, plenty of drivers yet to pit, even from their medium compound tires. Penalties starting to really rack up here. 16 drivers on the grid, 7 of them, it looks like, already having picked up penalties of some sorts. Most of them, of course, being track limits violations. And yeah, Mikey DeYoung is free and clear. He has room to run, and you gotta expect him to do so. Let's check in now on Matthew Stotts, who's made his way right up to the back of that Alfa Romeo of Jamie Knock. Now this will be a good battle here. Two pretty decent drivers, and of course, just the difference in tire compound at the moment. Well, I mean, they're both running the hard compound, but Matthew Stotts having about 10 laps less of wear on his than Jamie Knock, who is still racing the tires he started on. Oh my goodness, and as soon as I mentioned Jamie Knock's tires being the ones he started on, it looks like they caused him to go a bit wide there, and he picks up yet another track limits violation. I believe that's 6 seconds now worth of penalties that he's sitting on, unfortunately. Currently in that P2 position. If the race were to end right now, that would drop him, I believe, to... what is it? Well, I mean, as I say it, Matthew Stotts making his move up the inside for that P2 position. P3 for Jamie Knock, and if the race were to end right now, I believe he would drop down to P6, I want to say. 6 or 7. Well, now it is up to Stotts to eat into that gap to Mikey DeYoung as best that he can. That gap having stayed right around 15 seconds for the better part of 2 or 3 laps now, but already, you know, sinking chunks out of it. Half a second already eaten out of that gap by Matthew Stotts. Wow. Oh, and Al-Hazmi. Oh, and Mikey DeYoung is into the pits along with Jamie Knock. Wow, didn't even catch that. Mikey DeYoung rejoins in P3 on the soft compound tires. What a gamble here from Mikey DeYoung, and I shouldn't really say gamble. I'm sure he knows exactly what he's doing. 12 laps left to run, and I don't imagine that he will be planning to come back into the pits for any reason whatsoever. So he will be looking to make those softs last from here out. In a great position here to make some magic happen, although I would assume that most of the life we'll see in this car will be on the tail end of this stint. Probably wouldn't want to wear them out too quickly. Al-Hazmi making the move there on Matthew Stotts. Matthew Stotts looks to be kind of making space for him as well. Probably understands the situation and the assignment here. He's looking to hold on for the podium and knows probably well enough that these Williams are... They shoot to kill. They're not looking to hang on for any podiums, of course. So, holding station for the moment, Mikey DeYoung currently in P3 after that pit stop as Al-Hazmi goes purple here on lap 17 of this race, fastest lap at the moment, and the lead. Not much happening elsewhere, though. Francis, Jonathan Juergensmeyer, and AJ Knickel all opting to duck into the pits here from positions 4, 5, and 6. Oh, and it looks like moves being made on the rejoin. Jamie Knock just barely getting the best of Andrew Davis as he was rejoining off of his pit. So Jamie Knock back up into P4. However, lots of work ahead of him. 22 seconds the gap at the moment to Mikey DeYoung. And it looks like we have a safety car incident. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but Did we have a crash? It's unclear. I think we may have. Could be the Alfa Romeo of Ayrton Frederick, but his car looks totally fine. Not too sure who may have run into trouble here. Just taking a peek at all these cars towards the back of the grid, seeing if there's any visible damage. And it does not appear so. I'm not too sure exactly who may have had an incident, unfortunately, but the safety car is out at the moment. Oh, and it looks like it was Tyler Crabtree missing his front wing entirely. Oh, must have had a bit of a run-in with the wall at some point on this lap. Currently in the final point scoring position, so I mean, if it was him that managed to get into a tangle, he seems to have recovered well enough. However, safety car will be deployed probably for debris cleanup here, as the leaders are picking up the safety car right about now. And under safety car conditions, Travis acquiring another track violation penalty, as well as Julius Duco, I believe, also getting a track limits penalty. That's rather unfortunate. Probably not the point of the race where you would want something like that to happen. And look at this, it's an Aston sandwich. Abdul Al-Hazmi holding down the fort in P1. Matthew Stotts, a valiant effort. Currently good for P2 after a really good undercut by him, must be said. Mikey de Jong right there with them, of course, after having run more than half the lap distance, or more than half the race distance, I'm sorry, on his medium compound tires. What an effort so far from these three. It's been quite a race. Must be mentioned also, Francis currently finds himself up in P4 with Jonathan Jurgensmeyer right behind him. Jamie Knox sitting on those penalties, unfortunately, only up to P6. He was racing for podium positions earlier in this race, however, he's got quite the work to do if he hopes for that to continue to be the case. So it looks like we will be behind the safety car for at least one more lap, unfortunately. Will not be coming in this time around, as we wait for a couple stragglers at the back of the field to catch the pack. And of course, already half of the grid having incurred a time penalty of some sort. 8 drivers it is out of 16 currently sitting on penalty time. The highest of them being Jamie Knox, currently P6, with 6 seconds of track limits violation penalty time, I do believe. So things could certainly change with the end result of this race. Looks to be a few more opting to duck into the pits. So a few more off the back of the pack that we will have to wait for them to catch up. And I mean, if you're Al-Hazmi and Mikey de Jong here, you're really and Matthew Stotts. Oh wow, didn't even notice, but all 3 of them seem to be on those soft compound tires. Let's take a look. Oh, and it is most of the grid at this point. Wow, and why wouldn't you? I mean, if you're running laps behind the safety car, that's laps that you're not having to eat into your tire life, of course, not wearing them down by any means. So it only plays into their hands more than anybody else's, and I can only imagine that those that opted for the medium compound tires, that'd be Andrew Davis and Matthew Daly and Luke Allen, are probably looking around and, you know, counting their options, so to speak. So yeah, on this restart, it will be the majority of the grid. I believe 13 out of 16 drivers will be restarting on those soft compound tires. A fresh set for most of them. Oh, and it looks like we will be behind the safety car for one more lap, unfortunately. Ayrton Frederick not able to catch the pack soon enough. Not sure what's going on here. My game just kind of, removed all control options for me. Interesting. Alright. So one more go around behind the safety car. It will be in this lap, it seems. The whole pack all stacked up together now. So it will be on the go of Abdullah Hazmi here, and oh, he kind of gave it a bit of a delay there off the corner exit, but he is off and running now. Matthew Stotts sticking right with him though. Al Hazmi not getting a very good getaway on his own jump, and Mikey de Jong, of course, right there with them as well. Oh no, and it's another penalty there, I believe, for Jackson Altman. Oh, another track limits violation for him, currently in P8, and he was a lock for the podium as far as any of us were concerned towards the beginning of this race, but now seems to be having a bit of a struggle back there. Francis as well incurring himself a track limits violation, currently racing from P4, and that may kill any hope he had of shooting for the podium. Tight formation here from the top three, though, already building out about a 1 second gap to Francis back there in P4. And what do you do if you're Matthew Stotts here? Do you just maintain the sandwich formation? Do you try to make a run at first, or you just focus on defending out and holding on to second? Coming across the line, they will have 6 laps left to race once they do. Mikey de Jong going a bit wide, probably trying to extend the life of those soft compound tires for a big push come the end, I imagine. Fastest lap once again for Al Hazmi, bests only himself, of course. And yeah, it is a shootout here for these podium positions. Who will end up where? Matthew Stotts looking to have a run at the lead of this race, it looks like, right up into the back of that Williams of Abdullah Hazmi. Mikey de Jong kind of biding his time, hanging back a bit. Oh, and Al Hazmi just masterfully weaving his way through those turns. Matthew Stotts not quite able to take the same line and maintain the same momentum as Al Hazmi did, dropping back a small margin there. Not quite enough into the clutches of Mikey de Jong for him to be able to make any move there, though. Matthew Stotts having a look up the inside for the lead of this race. Oh, he is alongside Abdullah Hazmi now, who has his own look up the inside. Matthew Stotts looking for the switcheroo. Is it enough? Not quite here, but he has forced Al Hazmi super wide. May have compromised his corner exit here. Not compromised nearly enough for Matthew Stotts to be able to make a run on that exit. However, he is right there with him. Right up into the back of that Williams he is. And for a split second, it was Matthew Stotts leading this race. Oh, if only. Of course, he did pick a good opportunity to take there, and with DRS re-enabled after that safety car incident now, he's certainly close enough to have a run on Al-Hazmi through the next DRS zone. And of course, Mikey de Jong just right there with them as well, building out the lead from those top three back to P4 of Jamie Knock at the moment, already about 2.5 seconds. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer right there in P5 though, maybe shooting for that P4 position if he can. At this point though, just the rate at which the rest of the pack is dropping back off these front three, I'm not sure that anybody else will have a chance to fight for a podium position here, besides maybe positions 4, 5, and 6. However, even that is just such a long shot as that lead just continues to be right at about 2.5 seconds, now about 3 seconds. Matthew Stotts making his move. Oh my goodness, slicing his way through those Williams. He is into the lead of this race. Mikey de Jong following him through on Al-Hazmi. They are bumping wheels as they go through. Wheel to side pod there. Mikey de Jong making a look up the inside. Matthew Stotts shutting the door on him. And Al-Hazmi looking to make the move himself now. Oh my goodness, things are really heating up between these top three come the last few laps of this race. Matthew Stotts hoping for teammate on teammate fighting here, but it is not to be ever expected with this Williams team. They are so poised and so well positioned 9 times out of 10. Of course, we saw them kind of get tangled up in early incidents in races, you know, very early on in the season, but ever since then, they have just stayed so comfortable, stayed so confident in the top positions they usually find themselves in, and they never seem to fight with each other. The closest we ever seen to a real fight between them was, of course, last time out at Suzuka, where Mikey de Jong did make a very cheeky move on his teammate Al-Hazmi in the final lap of the race. On the final corner, no less. Mikey de Jong here, much closer to Matthew Stotts than Al-Hazmi is to Mikey de Jong. However, probably just biding his time. That seems to be the name of the game today. Just let the battle ahead of you play out. Let things happen. Let tangles kind of tangle. Let penalties get assessed if necessary as a battle is unfolding. We saw that plenty earlier in the race. Al-Hazmi maybe just looking to stay back enough to be out of the way should anything happen. And it is Mikey de Jong making the move up the inside of Matthew Stotts. Matthew Stotts leaving plenty of room for him there. Not quite enough on corner exit to make a return move on him here, but he is sticking right with him, of course, in Al-Hazmi, keeping them both close company. As they weave their way through Sector 3 here, they will take, 3 racing laps to go come the line. Another time penalty assessed there to Travis. Oh, and the penalties are really trickling in. There is, I believe, 3 drivers left on the grid, 4 drivers that have not incurred a penalty yet. Of course, not including the presumably AI ghosted car at the back of the grid. However, all of these drivers having time added to their finishing time come the end of the race is really going to switch things up, I imagine. But these top 3 keeping it ever steady, sitting on no penalties, and Jonathan Jurgensmeyer right there. Also without a penalty, Jamie Knock, you know, close enough to Jonathan Jurgensmeyer that should the race end right now, he is guaranteed that P4 spot, of course. Al-Hazmi picking himself up a penalty. Oh, it's commentator's curse, I swear, it's got to be. That is a 3-second time penalty for Abdul Al-Hazmi, presumably 4 track limits violations as well. Oh, and that may kill any hope he had of the win here. It may be just down to Mikey de Jong, Matthew Stotts, and final podium position, Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, if he can hold on well enough. Mikey de Jong making the move here on Matthew Stotts. Matthew Stotts right up into the back. I believe that is nose-to-tail contact, if only very slight. Wow, and this battle really heating up. They kept it rather calm, rather tame through the first, 24 laps of this race. And then everything came alive off that safety car restart. And here we are. This is a one-on-one shootout. And if you're Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, you're any penalty here would just be absolute heartbreak. He is guaranteed a podium position pretty much if he can manage to make this happen. Just keeping it clean and keeping the distance between him and Jamie Knock, you know, not too terribly large. May need a little bit of help from Jamie Knock, though, to get closer to Abdullah Hazmi. However, that itself is a long shot. So here we are, about a lap and a half left to race here at COTA for round 20 out of 25 in the 2023 ARC Formula 1 season, and it is Mikey de Jong just kind of biding his time most of the race, letting things unfold ahead of him. He now finds himself in the lead, already working out over a half a second gap to Matthew Stotts behind him. Oh, and does Al Hazmi have anything to say about it? "12 drivers out of 15, I believe, sitting on penalties." Wow, I think that's the most we've had, or at least the highest ratio of penalties to non-penalties thus far this season. Things really may start to change. Oh, 2 drivers very wide, forcing each other out. Jackson Altman and Francis fighting for that P6 position. And the gap from Jamie Knock to Al Hazmi grows and grows, unfortunately. Oh, Jonathan Jurgensmeyer maybe on the outside looking in at the podium here, unfortunately. Over the line for the final lap of this Grand Prix, Mikey de Jong holding off Matthew Stotts by half a second still. And Abdullah Hazmi hovering right around that half-second mark between Matthew Stotts as well. However, as we just saw, incurring that 3-second penalty that is surely going to kill his chances at a podium finish here. Unless... Jamie Knock just continues falling. The gap growing larger and larger between him and Abdullah Hazmi. And you know what? I think Abdullah Hazmi is well clear at this point. Really no chance for any driver to pick up that final podium position, even though he's sitting on the penalty, making the move on Matthew Stotts here on the final lap, because why not? Matthew Stotts having the inside, though, just takes it right back. Thank you very much. And with that move, it seems to have pulled Mikey de Jong far enough ahead where I don't think Matthew Stotts will have what it takes to make another move here. Oh, and what a cheeky move by Al Hazmi. May have made that move on Matthew Stotts just kind of to have him lose a bit of momentum so he wouldn't be able to make a move on his teammate. If that's the case, that is really something. Mikey de Jong over the line for the win here at COTA, with Matthew Stotts taking the second podium position and teammate of Mikey, Abdullah Hazmi, rounding it out, P3. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer moving his way up into P4 after the penalty assessment of Jamie Knock, who will take P5. AJ Knickel moving his way up after penalty assessment as well for P6. Francis in P7. Jackson Altman only good enough for P8 tonight. Wow, and I was, confident as anything that Jackson Altman would find himself on the podium one way or another come to the end of this race, but only good enough for P8 when all is said and done. And wow, a bit of a snoozer of a race to start off, but I must say, once that safety car hit right around lap 19-20, the last third or so of this race really picked up, and of course, these Williams boys are going to be super happy with their result. Mikey de Jong, 2 races in a row now that he has won, and that makes 5, I believe, in a row for the Williams team at large. At the top of the broadcast, having mentioned that Abdullah Hazmi had won 3 in a row before Mikey's glorious return to form at Suzuka, and now picking up another here. He is comfortably in the lead of the Drivers' Championship at this point. I believe the gap now 20 points between him and Al Hazmi for first and second position in that Drivers' Championship. And wow, what a great race it was. Strategy really coming into play. A good mix between compounds that we saw when the drivers started, but in the end, It is Mikey DeYoung coming away with another one. However, teammate Al-Hazmi picking up that point for fastest lap. Matthew Stotts holding on for that P2 position, and Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, cool, calm, and collected as always, finishing P4. Jamie Knock will get the P5 finish. AJ Knickel and Francis in P6 and 7. Jackson Altman, as mentioned, finishing P8. Tyler Crabtree getting P9, and the final point scoring position will go to the Red Bull of Luke Allen. P11 and 12 is Matty Daly and Julius Dooku. P13 for Andrew Davis, unfortunately, having great battles up around P5 and P6 for most of the race. And a few early retirements, unfortunately, some DNFs along the way, and that'll do it from here in COTA, folks. I want to thank you for tuning in, of course, to another great ARC event. That race really was a good one, I gotta say. Well, make sure you tune in tomorrow as well, I believe. Let me just take a peek at where we will be for the Euro Series. Things really heating up in the NASCAR Heat 5 Cup Series playoffs, of course. I believe we just raced the top 12 this past week, so make sure you catch the results of that soon enough. And of course, the Group 3 Masters going on every Sunday night. I believe we finally have that in the broadcast rotation as well. Let me just get some eyes on this Euro Series. Yeah, it looks like tomorrow night for the ARC Formula One Euro Series, we will be in Bahrain, so make sure you tune in for that as well. So, we want to thank you for catching this one, and of course, I'm sorry we had some technical difficulty there, but anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll catch you later.